Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show.
Welcome back to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I'm Greg, here with Chad. And for New Year's, we wanted to put together a New Year's Eve episode about goal setting. And I had a quick mystery question for you, Chad.
Yes.
Okay. Can you share a time when setting a specific goal had a transformative impact on your life?
I think from a business perspective, one of the times where not just my behavior and habits were shifted, but really my perspective was setting goals around how many people I contacted every day and every week to invite them to meet with me.
Sure.
And talk about their retirement, talk about their financial future, and see if we might be a good fit for one another. And it's intimidating. It's intimidating asking somebody that question. Because essentially, as you know, Greg, what we do every single day is talk to somebody who is multiple people who are maybe complete strangers, or maybe, they were introduced by another client or by a friend. We're essentially asking them, would you want to sit down with me? Share your personal goals, your hopes, your dreams, your fears, and entrust me to guide you along your path to financial freedom. That's a huge ask. And a lot of times I was setting my level of success or my interpretation of a win with how many people that joined me in that journey, or how many appointments I made, or how many people had that conversation with me. And I had to shift that goal to how many people would I attempt to talk to? Not even how many people I was going to talk to already, attempt to talk to. Because what it did, Greg, is even when somebody wouldn't answer the phone, or they weren't interested, or they hemmed and hawed and, call me back in a couple months, I'll have more time. Each one of those was a win, where before those felt like a loss. It felt like a defeat. Like, man, I've just called 5 people in a row and left 5 voicemails. So shifting that from focusing on the outcome that I wanted to a behavior I could control was transformative.
I remember when I first started over here, actually, that was one of the very first things that you taught me about. Was I had made the mistake of saying, like, well, I called this many people, but only this many answered the phone. You said, well, did you have control of them answering the phone? And the answer, of course, is no, you don't have control of that. So you like to set goals, from what I'm hearing, kind of around, in business is more like what we would call the lead measure. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's an input rather than outcome. Okay. And I think our long-term goals are usually based on outcomes, but our short break. So I guess getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, I think those outcomes need to be clear and measurable and specific. There needs to be some sort of metric defining when it's been accomplished. There also needs to be some sort of time element to it. Otherwise, if somebody sets a goal like, I want to lose weight. Well, you skip breakfast and you lost half a pound, or you done. Right. And you quit for the year, or I want to be a better husband, and you write your wife one note and you're like, okay, mission accomplished. I'm a better husband now. There. Yeah. But so that, or maybe it is specific, but like, I want to fit in size 32 jeans or something like that. Well, is that next week, next month, next year, or at some point in your life that can be kicked down the road over and over again? So now it's not an issue that you need to worry about. It's future Chad or future Greg's problem. So I think it's okay to have big long-term goals to be outcome based, but all of those goals then need to be transformed into short-term inputs. So somebody who's trying to get in better shape, the input might be how many times they're going to get to the gym that week. Maybe not even how long they're going to work out starting out. It's just how many times they're going to get to the gym. Or maybe they're going to have what they call now in the intermittent fasting world, like an eating window, shortening your eating window. So you're not going to eat before 10 or after 8 o'clock at night or whatever the thing is. Maybe to be a better spouse, it's how many times you're going to ask your spouse on a date every month, or how many notes you're going to leave. But it's changing that outcome, which is the desire, but it's outside your complete control, breaking it down into shorter term inputs that you have nearly 100% influence over.
Now, when you set these goals, do you write them down? Or you just try to keep track of them? How do you do that part?
It's both. I mean, really, they should be written down. And we do this as a team. Every week, we go through we call them our lead measures, and those are our inputs. So those are the things that we track every single week that connect to the outcomes that we want over the course of the year. But some of those outcomes are so big, they can be intimidating, they can be overwhelming, and they can also feel like, man, that's not a problem for me in January. That's a problem for me like in October or November when we're getting to the end of the year. So we break those down into those weekly chunks, and we do, they're written down. We look at them on a weekly basis, and there's accountability, which is also important. But I think ideally your goals should be written down. You should have some sort of a plan to reverse engineer from the future where you want to be to where you are today, breaking that long-term goal into short-term, smaller bites, smaller chunks that you can control. So I think, then the accountability piece. So if we're to summarize some of that, it's looking at clear, specific, measurable outcomes broken up into smaller, bite-sized chunks that you can control. So it's like having this vision of, here's the house you want to build. Now you need a plan, because a goal without a plan is just a hope or a dream, and I think a lot of New Year's resolutions are just that. I hope this happens in 2025.
Sure.
But there's no plan to get you there. And your life isn't going to get better by accident. 2025 isn't going to be better than 2024 by mistake. It requires a tremendous amount of intentionality. So we have to have clear, specific goals that are measurable and they're time bound. We need to break those down with some sort of a blueprint that takes that longer term big goal, breaks it down to bite-sized chunks, and pulls it into the moment. So it's not my problem in 10 months. It's okay, or 12 months or 2 years or whatever. It's, here's where I want to be in a year or 6 months, but here's what I need to accomplish this week in order to stay on track for that. So it creates alignment. I can now test my behavior. Is what I'm doing today, Greg, in alignment with the person I want to become or the thing I want to accomplish?
Sure.
And then I think the last piece is accountability. And this is getting long-winded. I apologize. But I think writing down that goal is one way of being accountable to yourself. But I'd also recommend sharing that goal with others to hold you accountable.
Absolutely. Like you said, we do that every week. We have a team meeting where we all put our goals up on the big TV, and we all talk about those things. And it's nice because that accountability does add an element of like actually getting it done as well.
Well, and real quick on that before we move on, is also when you have that accountability, there's a couple things. I mean, number one, you don't want to feel like you're doing this alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can't remember the term. It's like called like quitting Friday or something like that. It's like the first Friday in February. Most people have already broken or abandoned
giving up their goal,
their New Year's resolution, barely a month into the new year. It might be short. It might be like the third week of January. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. The point being is that most people are not successful, and most people, when I say successful, most people don't carry their goals to fruition, and they don't become actual habits. They become events. And we try this event of taking my wife out to dinner, or we try this event of going to the gym, or we try this event of sitting down and writing on a budget, but they don't become ingrained habits that are part of our life going forward. And one of those reasons, I think, is people have a tendency to do these things on an island. So it's important to have that community around us to hold us accountable, but to also help maybe redirect us. Maybe the lead measures, maybe the inputs that we've chosen don't have the alignment or the impact on our long-term goal that they should. And those are some things that we talk about too every week, where we try to have different lead measures every week to see, like, is this new action maybe a better driver of that long-term objective?
That makes sense. Chad, tell me a few different goals that a blue collar millionaire can think about for the new year, both for the guy that wants to be, or gal that wants to be a blue collar millionaire, and how about the person that's already successful? What could be some of the financial goals that they would set in the new year?
Well, first of all, like, blue collar millionaire, I mean, it's the name of our show, but even that is too vague. Like, becoming a millionaire for most people, having $1 million net worth does not mean that you have a significant amount of financial independence. And maybe we could break that down one day to see what a net worth, like what that actually would produce. You had net worth of $1 million. I mean, you wouldn't be broke on a park bench, but you wouldn't be living lavishly. So I think for somebody who doesn't have clear, specific goals, that's a great starting point. Finding out pretty much exactly how much money you're going to need to retire and stay retired comfortably for a very long time. And when I say retired, it's, of course, what we were talking about as a job optional lifestyle where you no longer require your paycheck. You might still be working, you might not, you might be in a new career, but getting to the place where you don't require your paycheck to sustain your lifestyle and to live comfortably. And so that would be the first step, coming up with that number, which we can help figure out pretty much exactly how much money somebody's going to need, and then reverse engineer that to see where they want to be, where they need to be in the future, where they're at right now, and what that course looks like in between. And for somebody who is maybe already at that point or very close to it, I think it's still important to have those goals, to have something that's going to stretch you, make you uncomfortable, make you fine tune what you're doing a little bit. Maybe it's some legacy goals. Maybe it's a giving goal, increasing your generosity. I don't know, but I think that there's a tendency for people who have gotten to a place where they can enjoy some comfort to have that comfort slip into complacency. So I think it's still important to set goals that are going to stretch us, or we end up like people that I'm sure we all know that talk about having 20 years of experience, but really have 1 year of experience 20 times. And they're just doing the same thing over and over because they're just kind of stuck in a rut. And we talk about, being in a groove. Well, the only difference between being in a groove and being stuck in a rut is how long you stay there.
Right.
And for people that have met a lot of their financial goals, I don't think we should keep moving the goalposts. Say, well, more money, more. But can I have a bigger impact with the money that is sustaining me, with the lifestyle I have, that I've achieved my goal, but it's not a finish line. So with the level of freedom I have, can I have a bigger impact in the world around me and the lives that are important to me? All lives should be important, but the people that are most important to you, what can I use what God's blessed me with to have a bigger impact in the community around me?
That's awesome. What do you think is the number one mistake people make with goal planning? We've talked about how people, in a lot of ways, they fail on their goals right away. What is that stemming from?
I think a lot of it is vague goals, vague objectives. I think a vague mission or a vague goal is going to lead to pretty vague results. And if the results are vague, you don't know if you're winning or not. You don't know if you're on track. You don't know if it matters. Like the thing I do this week, especially if you have a really big goal, like, maybe it's somebody who's trying to get out of debt and it might take them several years, or somebody who wants to be financially independent. That might take them a couple decades. Somebody wants to retire comfortably. You can't necessarily see the results right now. So if you don't have a clear, specific goal, it's really, really hard to know if what you're doing today is making any difference. So I think it's really demotivating. With the flip side is you have a blueprint, health blueprint, a business plan, a financial plan, a financial blueprint, something that takes the future, brings it into today, and holds you accountable for alignment. I think that is really motivating because it allows you to chip away at that goal. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is the lack of clarity and human beings, our brains crave clarity. We crave certainty. In fact, as you and I both know, you look at the gyrations of the stock market, bad news is better received than ambiguous news.
Right.
And people's tolerance for ambiguity is typically very low. Like even if we're getting bad news, okay, at least this is what I know I have to deal with.
Sure.
But when we're really vague with our goals, we're telling our brain this story that has no parameters, and it's really hard to wrap our mind and then to change our behavior around that.
How do I ingrain discipline into my life if I'm not feeling motivated, Joe?
Well, number one, I think motivation is overvalued. I think we need to change the way we look at that and realize that often actions drive motivation rather than the other way around. So as soon as we get done with this, or shortly thereafter, I'm going to the gym. So a little casual. Yeah, a little casual today. I'll be honest, Greg, I'm not particularly motivated.
Yeah.
It's a leg workout. It's going to hurt. I don't want to do this one. But once I get in there and start doing it, I will start feeling more motivation. But a lot of times we get that backwards. We think, I'm going to feel motivated, then I'm going to start acting on this thing. And your actions drive those feelings of motivation, not the other way. Now, there might be days where you wake up and you're like, man, I'm going to download the last 6 months of credit card statements and work on my budget and all these different things. Or, I'm going to sell this thing so I can carve out more room in my budget to save for retirement or whatever. That's great. But motivation is fickle. It's not going to be there every day. And if we require motivation, then we're going to burn out. And that's where accountability is super important. So that would probably, going back to your other question, that would probably be one of the next major mistakes is people that don't have any accountability towards their goals. So when they don't have motivation, nobody is there saying, Greg, hey, you said this was really important to you. I've seen your gym bag sitting there in the corner of the office for 4 days. It hasn't moved.
Yeah.
And it's somebody that really cares about you, not to pick on you, but in love, saying your actions are not aligned with what you wanted to accomplish and the person you said you wanted to become. So when you have that accountability, it can be an infusion of discipline when yours is lacking. And that's a big part of what we do here is we are that accountability. We are a source of discipline and perseverance and even optimism when the families we work with, when those things start to wane a little bit, and they can lean on us. But I think making a decision, making those small choices to have the correct action, especially if you know you're going to be hitting a situation where you're going to be faced with a decision, make the decision in advance. So you don't need as much discipline in the moment. So if you're trying to eat healthy, you're going to a party where there's going to be cake and ice cream and cookies and all that. Don't tell yourself, well, I'm going to try to stay on plan. Make a decision. I'm not going to eat it, or I will have half a cookie or whatever the thing is, make that decision in advance. Just like you've done, you've packed your gym bag already. You've made a decision in advance. I am going to go to the gym. I already have written out what I'm going to do at the gym when I get there. I've pre-decided. And I think that's really important because discipline is a choice. And when we require discipline to be fueled by motivation, then it becomes very sporadic. And I think the people who are most successful and really enjoy that success, and this is just in finance, it's in pretty much everything, they're not doing things wildly different at any given time. They're just doing the little things we all know we're supposed to do with consistency. And they're doing they're doing consistently and regularly what most people only do sporadically.
They make a habit of it. Yeah. For me, what you said about motivation, it really rings true. I go to the gym every day and I don't want to go most days, but I made a decision in my mind a long time ago that I was going to go to the gym 5 days a week. And after 3 weeks, I had a coach tell me it takes 3 weeks to create a habit. So that whether it's going to the gym for 3 weeks straight or it's reviewing your financial goals for 3 weeks. I think it's, and I don't know that that's necessarily the science or something, but it's certainly worked for me. But it's just that consistency of reviewing the goals or making the decision to do the thing that creates a habit that makes the goal seem like it's so much more attainable over time.
And I think another thing along those same lines, Greg, and this is a perfect example, is we're staring off screen at your gym bag, but you've made it easier to make the right decision. So a lot of times we require more discipline than we need because we've not redesigned our life around the person we want to become or the things we want to accomplish. So if your desire is to be healthier, and again, like that can't be the goal because it's not specific and it's not measurable.
Right.
But so you're going to create a goal around your personal health, and your gym clothes are in a box somewhere in your attic, and your pantry is filled with cookies and sugar and Skittles, and there's not a green vegetable anywhere in your refrigerator except the cauliflower that now has turned green because it's been sitting in there so long. Like, it's going to be really hard to make those good decisions. But if you can make the unhealthy decisions harder, which, man, if maybe you have some spending issues, maybe it's deleting all your credit card info from your browsers and from Amazon and things like that. So every time you make a purchase, you have to go find your credit card,
right,
or enter your bank info with every single decision, every single purchase. And on the flip side of that, you automate your savings. So every paycheck that comes in, a certain amount goes to your future self, goes to your 401k. And maybe even after it goes in your bank account, another piece of that is taken out to maybe a shorter term, but still longer term, still a big savings goal.
Sure. Replacing
your car or putting down payment on a house or just, a family vacation, whatever it is. But you automate those things. So you take the hard, healthy decisions, try to make them easier, eliminate some of the obstacles along the way. And those unhealthy habits, the things you want to remove from your life, make those things. If you're watching too much TV, take the batteries out of your remote control. Like, you have to physically go turn on the television, and it sounds like, you're in the pioneer days or something like that. Or, if the remote control is sitting on your end table right next to your couch, put a book there instead. I mean, we go on and on about this, but a lot of times we need to re-engineer our environment. You might even need to re-engineer some of your social settings and the places you go, the people you hang out with, because it requires so much more discipline if you're trying to create good financial habits and you hanging out with people who've never met a debt they didn't like. And, they're overspending. Their ego is way bigger than their income, and they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. Like, can you still do it? Absolutely. But it takes so much more discipline. So this is kind of a weird way to answer your question, but part of what we're trying to do is reduce the amount of discipline that it takes to stay aligned with your goals.
Certainly. I know one of those things that I've done before is if you have the phone is the thing that's taken up most people's time now, right? Well, take the YouTube app and get rid of it. That way you have to actually go and type into your browser, www, so that makes a lot of sense. Make it a little bit harder for yourself. I really like that.
Yeah, just throw some obstacles in the way of unhealthy decisions and remove as many obstacles that you can in the way of healthy decisions. Mm-hmm. And that way it doesn't require as much discipline to make good, healthy choices.
Sure. Well, wrapping things up a little bit, Chad, I think it's important to let our viewers know how to get a hold of us, and that's at veritasalaska.com. Or you could visit us on the Blue Collar Millionaire Show, which is where they probably found this. But and come in and have a conversation with us about the new year and goal setting. That's a big driver of what we do, is teaching people how to set goals and what are the right kinds of goals to hit that number that you were talking about.
Yeah. And what are the right inputs to measure to stay aligned with where they want to be? But also too, I just want to remind people that every single day is a blank canvas for a better future. So if you're listening to this in February or March or November, like, it's never too late to start doing the right. Don't wait for a new week, a new year, a new month, whatever. This is our New Year's episode, and it's great if you want to start. Then maybe it's easier. to start beginning of a year, but every day is a blank canvas to start painting a better future. So there's never a better time than now to start. There's a Chinese proverb: it's the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And we can't go back 20 years, but we can start today.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Chad.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us 2 quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.
The information expressed is for general information only and is not intended to provide specific investment advice or recommendations for any individual. It is suggested that you consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation. Hypothetical investment results are for illustrative purposes only and should not be deemed a representation of future results.